And he's playing a character called Curly, or wasn't he called Curly, the man in Oklahoma?
You're right, because there are a lot of good-looking actors out there who are not believable as someone who could do manual labor on a daily basis.
Absolutely. And then he came, and we were a bit stumped. And then one of the girls in the casting office said, "Oh, well, I saw this boy who..." And then he came in, and I went next door and said, "Isn't this what we've been looking for?" And those aren't fashionable qualities. That sort of decency and wholesomeness and stuff.
How did you decide to begin the movie with that sequence of him sort of doing? Was that something you'd been planning to do, or is that something that happened after you?
No, it was written in the script, and then it caused chaos because the cameraman insisted on photographing it at that time of day when the light was strict and it looked wonderful. So it caused problems, but it was always written like that.
It was written for him to be photographed against the sky.
No, but it was written that it could have looked like something out of the 18th century until he lifts up a Perrier bottle.
You know, it's funny because one of the things that stayed with me after I saw this movie was, if this were an American version of the story, I think there would have been so many changes. How do you feel?
Well, you mean the dog wouldn't have been killed?
Well, no, okay, for starters, they would have made, I believe, the way that most American romantic comedies are now, the state they're in, they would have made Tamara a lot more sympathetic, I believe. They wouldn't have maybe, you know, had her as unremorseful about sleeping with a married man, for instance. And I'm curious to know what your opinion is of American Hollywood romantic comedies. And
I'm the wrong person to ask. I'm an elderly man.
Do you watch them, like the latest ones at all? And obviously, I have no interest in directing them, as you know. Say.
Well, it's not that. It's just, you know, this is what I do. And I wouldn't be interested in sort of sweetening it up. It seems to me this is what's interesting.
What kind of movies do you enjoy watching in your free time?
Oklahoma.
Sorry?
Oklahoma.
What?
I remember it being tedious beyond belief. No, this was at the time. I'm not very good on American films at the moment. I can see that it's quite a problem.
So, are there any particular movies that you
I tend to go and see European films. I would think. I tend to see subtitled films. But with sadness, I can't understand why. You know, it's hard to work out why it should have happened. And at the moment, I'm being asked to direct an American film, which is, you know, terrific. Where there'll be no, I can't imagine someone saying, "Can you sweeten this up?"
It's one of the benefits of being you. Too.
I mean, I grew up on, you know, Billy Wilder films, which weren't exactly sweet. Shirley MacLaine slept with a married man.
The Apartment, is
what?
The Apartment?
Yes.
Yeah.
With a married man. Shocking. Look what happened to her.
And she attempted suicide, which was also shocking.
Yes. No. It's a wonderful film. Won 3 Oscars.
The pacing of the film is so interesting because it's like you tend to settle in on just enough, getting just enough of a moment, and then moving on, and just keeping it at that clip. Is that something that you encourage on the set too? Just yeah.
Well, I mean, in other words, that's sort of the way it's structured, really, and you know, I think to avoid being boring. I mean, I could have easily made a more boring film if that's what you're asking.
Well, thank you for doing that.
I'll do it. I'll make sure next time it's more a bit duller. Sorry, which one clicked?
It's this one.
This one.
That's what you're trying to balance the whole time.
And is that something that you discover methodically in the editing room, or is that like definitely like your intention?
You sort of feel it in your waters, really. I mean, in other words, if you can't do that, I don't know what you do. You know, that sense of musicality and tempo.
The sequence with Beth where she's talking to the camera, why did you decide to just do that with her and not let any other characters?
Because I couldn't, because it was such a lovely story. And I kept saying, can't we get this in? And when you tried to sort of write it in naturalistically, it was rather sort of laborious. And in the end I said, well, why didn't you just say it to the audience? Because it's so entertaining and so psychologically revealing. But of course what I was hoping, and you know, when you go say about the comic book, what I was hoping was that I was making a film in which a thing like that could happen. So in that sense, the whole thing was very liberating.
And Gemma was saying you had the idea of having like a bubble thought.
We tried that, and then I think they didn't work, or people thought they just didn't work.
Too much like a comic book.
But there was a film called Scott Pilgrim, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Which didn't seem to have been very, it seems not to have worked in that.
How'd you use the music in this film? What was your...
How did I use it?
Well, it seemed like it